commitment is not just brewing beer. It's brewing moments that matter. It's stepping up when the nation calls. And bringing people together for 130 years in the country we love. South African breweries, forever committed to a future with more cheers.
South Africa, be sharp, not for persons under the age of 18.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Hartwell Chuma from William Radcliffe, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome you to the annual general meeting of the shareholders of SAB's and Zelleka Holdings Limited. The chairman of the board, Mr. Mos Ngwasheng, will be chairing the meeting. We also have other directors, Ernest Kwinda, Tumi Dlamini, Lufuno Shunana, and William Mukhase in attendance. The representatives from Company Secretary William Radcliffe, the auditors PwC, Computershare, the transfer secretaries are also in attendance. I would now like to invite Mr. Mos Ngwasheng to bring the formal meeting to order and commence with the annual general meeting. Over to you, Chair.
Thank you, Hardwell, and welcome to our SAB's and Zelleka shareholders. This is the fourth annual general meeting of SAB's and Zelleka Holdings Limited, and we are happy you have chosen to join us. The board of directors of the company has determined that the meeting will be conducted entirely through electronic participation, as this is the most effective way of reaching our national shareholder base and to limit the costs associated with hosting a live event, which will have a detrimental effect on the amount of money available for dividends. The board will annually review the viability of hosting live events. Virtual meetings are permitted by the JSE and is in accordance with the provisions of the Companies Act 71 of 2008 and the Companies MOI. The company has retained the services of Inns Property Limited to remotely host the AGM on an interactive electronic platform. Computershare, who are the company's transfer secretaries, are appointed to act as scrutineers and will provide the results of voting on the resolutions put to the meeting. Please take note that in terms of Section 63 of the Companies Act, only persons who have been reasonably verified have the right to participate and vote at this meeting. This extends to persons who are in possession of a valid proxy form, which has been filled in accordance with the notice of the AGM, and shareholders who are reflected on the register as at the record date for this meeting, being the 16th of May 2025, or who are in possession of a written letter of representation from their CSDP or broker. Before we begin with the formalities of the meeting, I will take you through some essential guidelines of the meeting. A few pointers on how to cast your votes. All shareholders will have received a link to the voting platform to either their cell phone number or email address, and many have already cast their votes on the voting platform. If you have not cast your vote yet, you can vote at any time during the meeting by logging into the voting platform. We would like to provide an opportunity to all shareholders to be able to ask questions during the meeting, so please use the raise your hand function button if you would like to pose a question in relation to the information being presented. Once we've responded to all the questions raised which relate to the item presented, you will also be provided with the opportunity to raise your hand. Once you have been acknowledged, you will be able to pose your questions to the meeting. I'll begin by asking the company secretary to confirm that there are at least 3 shareholders present in person or by proxy who are entitled to vote, and that not less than 25% of the total votes of all shareholders entitled to vote are present in person, by proxy, or represented.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I can confirm that there are at least 3 shareholders present, and more than 25% of the total votes of all shareholders entitled to vote are present in person, by proxy, or represented.
Accordingly, I declare that the quorum is present. I therefore declare the meeting duly constituted. In accordance with the company's MOI, resolutions put to the meeting will be voted on by way of a poll. The resolution will be displayed on the screen for ease of reference. Shareholders will be given the opportunity to ask questions relating to the resolution, which will be answered after the resolution has been presented. The results of the resolutions will be announced via SMS and via SENS within 24 hours of the close of the meeting. Shareholders are reminded to direct any questions that do not pertain to the specific matters of the AGM to JSE Investor Services or Computershare. I refer you to the notice of the AGM and ask that we take the notice of the meeting as read. Are there any questions? Thank you. We will now display the resolution one by one. Please be reminded that we will respond to questions at the end of posting of each resolution. We shall now proceed with the business of the meeting and voting. The company's audited financial information for the year ended 31st, 2024 has been made available online to shareholders in the annual report. The annual financial statement together with the following reports are also made available: Director's Report, Report of the External Auditors, the reports of the Audit Committee and Social and Ethics Committee. The chairpersons and shareholders of the respective board committees are also present at this meeting today. In addition, the designated auditor from PwC is available to respond to any questions relevant to the audit of the financial statement. I now invite Mr. Ernest Kwinda, who is the chairman of the Audit Committee, to briefly provide summary of the financial position of the company.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, shareholders. My name is Ernest Kwinda, the chairman of the Audit Committee. I have been requested this morning to stand in for William Karuhije, who is unfortunately not able to join us this morning. So I have the pleasure of taking you through the highlights of the reported financial performance for the year ended December 2024. If you could please flick to the statement of profit and loss and other comprehensive income. Starting with the dividend income, we reported an amount of 85 million rand that was received as dividend income. That was a marginal increase from the prior year of 77 million rand. And we then recorded a fair value loss on the financial asset, being the investment in AB and BEV. And that has resulted in a loss of 1.3 million rand. And that compares to an unrealized gain of 900 million rand that was reported in the prior year. On the operating expenses item, that has remained fairly stable at around 7.3 million rand. And I can take you through the detail of the makeup of that 7.3 million, if we can flick to the next slide. That 7.3 is largely made up of the director's remuneration, which remained stable at just over 1 million rand. And then there was an administration fee of 2.5 million rand, and that relates largely to the JSE Investor Services costs in terms of the listings fees and compliance fee related to the JSE. And the next significant amount related to professional fees of 1.3 million rand. You would see that has remained stable relative to the prior year. And that amount relates to the fees or cost for the administration and accounting services that William Ratcliffe provides to SABZK. The other costs of 900 million rand are largely made up of 904,000 rand, apologies. It's largely made up of costs related to INS for AGM, annual meetings, interim bootlets, etc. And that amount was 577,000 rand. And the next significant amount making up of the 900,000 rand is a cost related to the preference share valuation that is conducted annually by KPMG for the company, and that amounted to 77,000 rand. And the next biggest amount was then an amount of 53,000 rand that was relating to the brokerage fees that were paid by the company. If you can please go back, Hartwell, to the statement of comprehensive income. That then resulted in an operating loss of 1.2 million rand, and that compares to 970 million rand profit that was reported in the prior year. The finance amount of 1.4 million relates to the income that we earned on our cash balances. That again has remained stable relative to the prior year. And the finance costs of 392 million rand has also remained stable relative to the prior year, and that relates to the preference share liability, the interest cost on the preference share liability. The loss that we reported for the year was resultantly 1.65 million rand, and that compares to a profit of 508.79 million rand recorded in the prior year. The income tax for the year, we have recorded a recovery of 144 million rand, and that compares to an income tax expense of 154 in the prior year. And the recovery was largely driven by a reversal on the deferred tax on the fair value, which was an amount of 155 million rand. And other amounts included in the income tax recovery relates to the 2024 withholding tax amount of 25 million rand, which was paid in 2024. However, I'm pleased to also report to shareholders that during the prior year, we also managed to recover the 2022 withholding tax amount, which was refunded to us, of 14 million rand. And that is duly reflected in our cash balances. And there was also a small income tax amount of 390,000 rand that forms part of the 144 million tax recovery. If we could please move to the statement of financial position. Now looking at the statement of financial position and starting with the asset side. The financial asset that we held at fair value reduced to 4.780 million rand, and that compares to just over 6 million rand in the prior year. And the reason for the decrease was largely driven by the reduction in the share price of our investment in AB and Bev. The share price decreased from 1,200 to the price of around 937 rand. So that also drove, as I've indicated before, the unrealized loss that we recorded in the income statement. In terms of the cash balances, we had 27 million rand, and that compares to 10 million rand that we held in the prior year. And the reason for the increase in our cash balances, as I've indicated, it is because of the 14 million rand withholding a tax refund that we received last year of 14 million rand. Thank you. If you could look at the liability side, next page. On the equity and liabilities, no significant movement on the equity and liabilities line items, except for the accumulated loss. And the accumulated loss is largely driven by the 1.5 million rand loss that we reported in our income statement, and no movement in share capital and reserves. The preference share liability reflects the outstanding amount, the rolled out amount of the debt that is due of 2.9 million rand, and that has slightly increased relative to the prior year of 2.8. And the reason for the increase was largely because of the interest of the dividend income that we received not being sufficient to cover our interest cost on the preference share liability. And that line item of 2.9 should be read together with the preference share dividend accrual in our current liability of 740 million rand. And that 740 million rand is effectively a reflection of the current portion of the preference share liability that is payable within the next 12 months. So in aggregate, we have an amount of just over 3 billion rand that is outstanding on our preference share liability. The South African Breweries facility of 12 million rand relates to the facility that SAB had advanced to the scheme, likely to cover the operating costs. That amount remains outstanding. It is due for redemption, it is due for payment in August of this year. And the board will be applying its minds in terms of potential approach to SAB for a request for potential extension, or alternatively a redemption of that amount. For now, that amount remains outstanding of 12.8 million rand. The trade and payables amount of 7 million rand relates again to the costs that SAB had to cover at the inception of the scheme, which they had to pay on behalf of SAB Kabili. That amount remains outstanding and payable to SAB, and we will be engaging with SAB in terms of how we deal this amount going forward. And then the next big amount relates to amounts that are due to shareholders of 1.3 million rand. This amount is largely a result of dividends that were not paid to shareholders for various reasons. Either shareholders haven't updated the details, etc. However, the board continues to look at that amount and see how the issue can be addressed. And you will realize that the amount has slightly increased, unfortunately, from last year, from 703,000 rand to now sitting at 1.3 million rand. That covers the financial statements for SAB for the prior year. I have the pleasure as well to note to shareholders that AB InBev on 30 April 2025 declared and approved a dividend of €1 per share. That amount has already been received in our bank accounts, and the board will then be going through a process to determine the appropriate dividends that should be paid to SAB shareholders after consideration of the costs that are related to the administration of the scheme. Thank you, Chair.
Are there any questions on the 2024 annual report and financial statement?
Mr. Chairman, there are no questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll now move on to the report on matters within the Social and Ethics Committee's mandate, which was included in the company's 2024 annual report. Are there any questions that shareholders may wish to raise? If there are no questions, I now move to the voting of the ordinary and special resolutions as set out in the notice of the meeting. As this meeting is being held completely electronically, shareholders and proxies were able to cast their votes on the online voting platform prior to the meeting. Where a proxy vote has been given to the chairman without voting instructions, I have voted in favor of each resolution. I will now table all the resolutions to be voted on as outlined in the notice of the meeting. For those shareholders who have not already cast their votes, you will need to vote on the online platform as we progress. Now, resolution number 1, re-election of directors. As to propose resolution 1.1.
Thank you, Chair. Resolution number 1.1, which is an ordinary resolution, resolve that Mosong Washeng, who retires by rotation and who is eligible and available for re-election, be and is hereby re-elected as a director of the company. Are there any questions that shareholders may wish to raise? Thank you. Back to you, Chair.
Ordinary resolution number 1.2, resolve that Itumeleng Dlamini, who retires by rotation and who is eligible and available for re-election, be and is hereby re-elected as director of the company. Are there any questions?
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
We now move on to the reappointment of audit committee members. Ordinary resolution number 2.1, reappointment of Mr. Ernest Kwinda as the committee chair. Are there any questions?
No questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Ordinary resolution number 2.2, reappointment of Mr. Mosong Washeng as an audit committee member. Are there any questions that shareholders may wish to raise?
No questions, Mr. Quinder.
We now move on to ordinary resolution number 2.3, reappointment of Mr. Umi Dlamini as audit committee member. Are there any questions?
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
We now move on the reappointment of external auditors. Ordinary resolution number 3, reappointment of PricewaterhouseCoopers as independent external auditors. Resolved that PricewaterhouseCoopers Incorporated be and is hereby reappointed as auditor of the company to hold office with effect from the conclusion of this meeting until the conclusion of the next AGM of the company, with Marcia Mukoni as the designated auditor. Are there any questions?
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Special resolution number 1, remuneration payable to non-executive directors. COSEC.
Special resolution number 1, the remuneration payable to non-executive directors. It is resolved that 1, in terms of the Companies Act and Clause 8.7 of the MRI, and subject to the terms thereof, the director's remuneration with effect from the date of passing of this resolution as set out in the annual report be and is hereby approved. Are there any questions that any shareholders may wish to raise on this special resolution?
All the resolutions for consideration have now been tabled for voting. Voting will remain open for the next 10 minutes until, what's the time? Until 9:30. Welcome back to the meeting. Are there any further items that anyone would like to raise before the meeting is closed? There be no questions. Ladies and gentlemen, the voting has now closed. The results will be advised via SMS and will be published on SENS as soon as all votes have been collated. That concludes the business of the AGM of SAB Zenzele Gabil Holdings Limited, and I thank you for your attendance.